Hey guys, welcome to another edition of On Social, the show that talks about everything that has to do with live video, marketing, social media, all that good stuff. And I know we really haven't talked a lot about marketing, but that's going to change in the upcoming weeks. We've got some different guests coming on, one of which is a marketing person over at Telestream, and she wants to come on and talk about how to do things on so how to better your video, how to get it out there on social media, get it in front of people. That's all cool stuff. I mean, we've been talking about gear, we've been talking about all the great stuff and how to get your video looking good. But what do you do with it afterwards? So that's coming up. Also, I am joined today by the man, the myth, and the legend, Mr. Jeffrey Fitzgerald from Jeff and High Def TV. Welcome.
I'll take the man and the myth. The legend part there is just a little iffy right now. So it's
Well,
always good to be here, Steve. And a quick shout out to Patrick Osterman. I ask everyone where they're coming in from. Says he's in Daytona Beach with IBM Watson and IBM Watson Media. So it's another cool place and a cool guy. So thanks for watching.
Well, we appreciate you guys tuning in and those on LinkedIn. So it's just you and I today. Marty is on location. He is in Atlanta. I think he's right across the street from CNN. He had to make sure to tell me that he's right across the street from CNN. And I said, I hope you're going to go over and get some video footage. And he just kind of laughed. Um,
Yeah,
but uh,
you know, yeah, I mean, they actually have a pretty cool tour down there if you take the tour. But I don't know, Steve. I feel like we're college parents right now. Marty's off at college, and we're waiting for him to get back. And but no, it's always good to have a great conversation, and we know he's getting some great footage for us for the kind of things he does when he's doing these great productions, and we're going to see some of that here in the near future. So
yeah, it's great. And I know originally we told you guys last week that Paul Richards from PTZ Optics and Stream Geeks was going to be on this week. He forgot, and I forgot. NAB New York was yesterday and today, so we had to reschedule him for next week. So that's next week, and that's what's coming on, or coming up, I should say, in the future. So, but Jeff, like you said, we have a great topic today. What's your why? And I kind of want to throw the question out to you. Um, what does that mean when you hear that? What is your why when in the broadcasting and social media and whatever it is that you're doing here in this new media form? When somebody says, "What's your why?" I know it kind of makes your wheels turn. What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
well, it sounds a little like psychology in a lot of ways, but it's really not. There's two things that have happened in video since its inception. One is this professional route where people gather around meeting tables and they say, "Hey, we want to do a particular show on sports or news or whatever it might be," and we begin formulating ideas. We want to talk about, well, what do we want it to look like? What do we want somebody to feel when they watch our program? What are the colors involved? What does the set look like? A lot of technical details, but really a lot of the content details, a lot of the creative details have to come into play. In the social world, so many others, us included at times, have kind of taken this journey on our own. And it's like, wow, I think I can get this camera and I'll plug it into my computer. Now the computers can handle it at 5 frames a second. And now here we are today, 15, 20 years later, people are learning how to do video very well on their own, but they haven't really had the modeling of how to put together a show. And obviously they're two very different things. A broadcast show is not a web show for all intents and purposes. It can look more similar, like what we do, but the content can be very different. And a lot of times people get on, and the first thing you'll hear out of their mouth is, "Hey guys," and then it's Freeform Friday all the way through the show. And if you've got a great personality, if you're bubbly and people love watching you, and you're bringing something new and surprising or entertaining every week, those are always really cool things to have, and you'll get a great following. And there's no doubt about it. But if you're more intentional about really thinking about why you're doing what you're doing, and really some of the deeper meaning behind some of these things, being more intentional about your media, I think you're going to find that you can build something that has a lot more has the ability to attract people in a lot better way. It's probably the best way to say that.
And I don't know if a lot of people realize, even this show in general, when we first started, the inception of this show, started thinking about it, what we were going to call it, the direction we were going to go, talking with the folks at Telestream and kind of figuring out, Jeff, it took a couple months of just planning and preparation and getting show topics and trying to decide what direction we wanted to go. And I basically said, hey, the why is how can we serve our user base, the people that are out there? How can we bring value to them? And the others were saying the same thing. And so that's where this idea stemmed from. And then, it's like, okay, so what do we talk about? We can come up with a few, shows to talk about basic broadcasting. But then it was like, okay, well, let's turn it over to the community. What do they want to hear? What do they want to know about? And that's the why. Like, why would we do the show? Well, because we want to serve the community, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, when you talk about what's the why, the real why needs to be twofold. One is what's your why, but the second part of that question really could be, what's the why of the people that you want to be part of your world, part of your show, and part of your series. And I basically had wrote down something I think is pretty interesting in that you're there for them, which is really the bigger direction because as you said, serve is the number one word when you're doing any kind of media. People don't watch it to just build you up. They're looking for value. They're looking for something that will make their day, give them something that maybe make their pain a little easier. If you have been experienced in a particular app or gear and you can save somebody 6 hours because they didn't know to click the box under the settings that was in a different window, now you're making their day a lot more powerful because you're saving them time and give them something they can really go, okay, that guy's got something that I want to go back and see more of. But at the same time, they're there for you, and you have to figure out what it is that you're looking for. And so there's kind of obviously it's a relationship, right? I mean, that's probably the best way to say that. But there's a bigger meaning behind getting in front of a camera and basically saying, hey, every Friday I'm going to go live and this is what I want to talk about. So some of that can be if you're going to do interviews, do you come up with a list of topics? Have you built an editorial calendar? That's something on the TV show that I produced. Was every Monday for 2 hours. That's what we did. We were on an editorial call, not just talking about what that show was going to look like for Thursday, but out from there. If we're doing a show on diabetes and we're talking about the challenges of insulin affordability, do the in the following week, do we want to get the FDA director on there to speak about that? And so we start trying to plan strategically. We would look at calendars for different people or different topics. If there's a theme of NAB is a great conversation point. We can understand it in this model. If NAB is coming up in October, that's when you plan on being around New York, or you plan on doing a feature on the latest 4K VR cameras, that kind of thing. And if it's not interview based, and you're doing a show on your own, the bigger thing there is to really try to get the pulse of your community to find out what they're really interested in. And there's obviously there's a lot of ways you can figure that out. Comments are a big thing if you're not seeing as many, ask people, and that's what I'll do right now. For you who are watching, we can come up with what we think works all day long, but the reality is, why are you watching it? Steve, I think that would be a really good thing to hear from some folks. Why do you watch shows like on social things where
Mhm.
people are trying to share these bits of information? And the bigger question might be, what are you hoping to get out of it one day? What are you wanting to do on your own? How can we help you get where you're going? Because the more we can do that, we get excited about it. And we're like, hey, this is something we think we might be able to push you in a direction that maybe will get you over some of the fear, get you over some of the equipment challenges, and get you out there. And one day you're going to be the guy doing the same exact thing for somebody else, because that's really just how it works, right? I mean,
Mhm. Yeah, no, I mean, I think you said to me earlier in the pre-show, you were saying about, I've done this for many, many years and like why I got started doing it. And the simple answer was like I was watching um a guy on the internet. He was sitting in front of his computer just doing his day-to-day work, and he had a chat room of like 500 and some people just sitting there chatting about technology, and I'm like, "Really? People find this interesting?" He's not saying anything to them. Occasionally, he might throw him a bone and say, "Hey, how's it going, guys?" Because he knows the person in the chat room. And I'm sitting here and I'm going, "This is ridiculous." I could do that and talk about the little bit of computer knowledge that I had at the time and really draw people in. And it started where I had like 50 people. I'm like, wow, 50 people actually care what I have to say. Now, mind you, just using a webcam and a built-in microphone. The camera was set at a distance. I mean, my wife and I were getting ready to move, so we had boxes behind us. There wasn't anything aesthetically pleasing in the video, right? I didn't know anything about video. I'm sitting there in a white T-shirt. I think that YouTube video is still up. So you
oh
could
yes,
imagine
this.
that. You could imagine that white T-shirt's just getting blown out, right, on video. But I was at the time. It was when Craigslist was going through that big thing where you had to be careful. The Craigslist killer, if you remember.
Hmm.
And so I was talking about different things from my experience and different things that I researched about. how to protect yourself with Craigslist, and then 50 turned into 100, and then 100 turned into 200, and over the live streams, and I would stay live all the time and just shoot the bull basically about tech, and people started getting involved, and there was no production value, there was no scripting, there was no nothing. It was just us sitting there
Well,
on
and
Skype.
and you were doing it, Steve, at a time before everything blew up. I mean,
Yeah.
you and I originally met in 2015 from
Mhm.
Blab, which was an amazing platform. And 2015 for me is the year where I really felt like live streaming really took the ubiquitous turn into the mainstream. I mean, it had always kind of been around. I got into actually streaming audio in the late 90s and things, and kind of been with it all along in different forms and fashions. But it was always this kind of basement of the science lab kind of thing where you knew some guy that had a camera in his basement and a green screen. And the thing is, you were doing it back when nobody else was doing it, and you were doing it without the fancy backgrounds, like things like you talked about. But why were you getting that following? Because you were finding things that people cared about, that wanted a conversation about. And I think that's really, really important because, we can easily get caught up on the bright, shiny objects and say, hey, if I buy this particular microphone, or if I buy this particular thing, it's going to make me be better. And the reality is, it may make you look marginally different, and it may increase something, but it's not really going to add a whole lot. And the analogy I like to use with that is, believe it or not, is Photoshop. I've been using that for a long time, and there's still things in there I find that I've never looked at. And you can keep buying new versions, or you can just finally get down to learning the one you got. And so some of it is, learning the landscape of your own world and just being better at it that way. But you were doing it when nobody else was really doing this. You, Jeff Adams, and a few other people I know were really making a big impact in the late 2000s. And it's one of those things where I think if you really look at it, you're meeting a need for people.
Well, and I think a lot of people get nervous about doing shows, especially if it's like say this show for instance. Well, I'd like to talk about social media and broadcasting, and they get nervous. Well, I don't want to start it, but the reality is there's no such thing as competition in this realm, if you
No.
will, because people watch us not necessarily all the time because of the content we're sharing. They like our personalities. They like the little banters that we get into. There's people that like you that may not like me, and there's people that like Marty that may not like either of us. But the three of us together, people like us, and so they tune in. So if so and so wants to start up another show that's similar to this show, or similar to another show that maybe you're doing, maybe a firefighting show like you were doing, it really boils down to that relationship that you built with that audience, right? That relationship that's going to kind of stand the test of
Yeah.
time. That yeah, they might watch the other show. Like here's a prime example, John Mahoney, right? We're not in any competition with him. He's not in competition with us. He does a broadcasting show, but the guy knows his stuff.
Yes, he does.
We know our stuff. So he supports us, we support him. So rather than getting into that whole, oh, they're competition, let's not talk about the elephant in the room. It's not like that. There's a personality there. People identify
Yeah.
with that personality, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, Steve. I mean, I think the biggest mistake you can make if you're getting into live streaming, wanting to do live streaming, is to somehow think that you got to stake your mark right from the get go. That you have to come in and be different than everybody else. You're already different than everybody else. The thing is that the more you can put into your video, the better off everybody's going to be, because they'll be able to see you. And when you talk about the trust factor, which is what you talk about with it's, whether it's Marty, yourself, or me, or whoever, it's just the fact that you're showing up. Showing up is the number one thing that people have a big problem with, and this has been a big Achilles heel for me. Um, you know, I've had the ability to do different things, and I could create different, show ideas and whatnot. And I get these ideas like, well, do I really want to do it? Is it something I think people would find value in? But the reality is, behind all that is, I'm nervous if people are really going to dig it. Am I going to do something that people find value in? And you talk about getting nervous in front of a camera. My mom was a TV producer. I was in TV stations at 7 years old. Never met a microphone I didn't like. And I always get nervous, meaningfully nervous, in front of a camera. And I have people sometimes say it looks like I'm pretty easy going with it, but nerves and being able to put up a good front and learn how to present are two different things. You're always going to be nervous, but embrace the awkward. That's what my pastor says. I love that phrase, because sometimes the uncomfortable gets you exactly where you want to go in life. And so part of this finding your why is that deeper meaning. If you want to put yourself out there and be a personal brand, if you want to just share with the world something that maybe they need to know. Steve, I haven't talked to you a lot about this, but one of the things I am working on here in the background is actually my first endeavor, and I don't know what the time frame looks like on this, but it's my first endeavor producing TV centric content here from my home location, because I'm a diabetic. And one of the things, like I used as an example earlier, is this whole insulin affordability issue. And I want to go back to producing something like I did when I was doing something out of the CBS affiliate in DC, on healthcare and the affordability for chronic illness. And I want to start interviewing legislators and lawmakers, patient advocates, bringing in government conversation, and really trying to build something up that will have some real meaning for everybody. And this is where today this conversation is really meaningful for me, because you have to start with that why. What is the reason? Who's it going to go to? How are you going to get it out there? And then the biggest part of this is, who are you going to work with? Because none of us can do anything on an island. It's the collaboration factor. Who and what organizations can you bring in to your vision where they buy into it, and then they're really excited about it, and they say, you know what, we believe in what you're doing as well. And that's where you get a movement going and you get a following. And it's one of these things that's not easy to do for any of us at any level, but it's worth doing if it's something that means something to you and it means something to the people who are going to be watching.
And that's the whole thing. I mean, if you get into it for any other reason, you know, you're kind of getting into it for the wrong reason, and you're I don't want to call it passion, but your fire is going to burn out because you're going to do something that you're not passionate about, and you're going to get like 4 or 5 episodes into it, and you're just going to be like, I don't feel like doing this anymore, because you really didn't have passion to do it. You just decided to do it on a whim. So it's
Or yeah, no, you're right by and large, Steve. But there's another thing, because I've been guilty of this as well, which is you put something out there, you put your heart into it. And let's just be honest, anytime you get in front of a video camera on the internet, it's like standing up in high school all over again. And you're
yep,
like, am I wearing socks? And if it's really bad, am I wearing pants? Right. And
yeah,
so you look at this and it's like, I'm holding up my poster to talk about my Canada essay or something. Right. And you start thinking about, well, what do people think? Or, are they mocking me? And do they like me? Do they, whatever? And the truth is, yes to all of the above. There are going to be people doing every one of those things, but you do it anyway. You embrace the awkward and you begin to become yourself, and you let your hair down digitally, and you become that person that you are. And the people who love you and they love what you're all about are going to gravitate to you. And that's where you find those people. And when you talk about, sometimes maybe you don't have the passion, you go and you put all this stuff out there and you do 4 or 5 shows, or maybe 10 or whatever it might be, and you see 3 viewers, 1 viewer, 3 viewers, or maybe you've been doing it a couple months, 6 viewers, 16 viewers, and you're like, oh, but this guy over here, he's got 200 people. And the reality is, and I'm very different. I don't for a minute say that this is what you should believe about social media, but I've always looked at likes as a head nod. It is an acknowledgement of something that was, hey, that was cool. Didn't mean you're signing up to my army and you're going to be in my Air Force. And so I think that if you mistakenly overvalue likes and follows, or the amount of people that are in your count, I think you're going to miss a bigger miss a bigger calling, because that could stop you from sharing with the world something that's really important that you've got to tell this world. And you're thinking, oh, if only 10 people care, maybe it's not that valuable.
hmm hmm
Social media is not where you find that out. You find it out in real, authentic relationships, human relationships. So begin asking people, talk to people offline, find out, where you can improve, be open to criticism, and give it all you got, and you'll get there.
No, I agree with that. That's kind of why I got away from tech there for a while, because it just seemed like, I don't want to say the passion burned out, or I just I got bit by that same thing that you said,
Mm,
like the being in 3rd grade, like everybody comparing you to somebody else. Like, I don't want to watch this anymore because you're just regurgitating what somebody else said. And for the most part, they're right. I mean, anybody can go out and get tech news, right? So,
yep.
I found a new passion where I could bring high quality video to the outdoors, and now I'm doing it with the arcades and other passions of mine. But that's when I see my most creative side come out, when I'm doing something about passion. Even with this show. This show I'm very passionate about. The shows that, we're going to be bringing on here, with Telestream. I'm very passionate about it because it's something I know I'm good at. It's something that I know that I can do, and I guess that's my why. Like you said, if 10 people show up to watch the show, I at least know that if somebody goes back and watches it, in a week or 2, that whatever we talked about during that half an hour is gonna be relevant so that person doesn't make the same mistakes that I made 10 years ago starting out. Buying that camera and wearing a white shirt in front of it, or putting that camera in while you sit in front of a window. I don't know how many times I see that on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
So, I guess that's
Yeah.
my why for this, right?
Oh, yeah, and if you think about it, I don't know what everybody else thinks about, but, if you think about, I'm gonna be on a stage and the world is gonna watch and you see 10 people, you think, "Oh my god, that's nothing, right? My value must not be there." Think about it as being in a room with other people, like a networking party or, any other kind of a party. If there's somebody in front of you that is looking you in the eye and they're smiling and they're like, "I wanna know more about who you are." You don't walk away. If you're a decent person, you're not looking over their shoulder like, "I need 8 or 10, 15 more people to do this, bud." Doesn't work that way, right? I think we need to learn how to value more people instead of worrying about how many people value us, because that's where you're going to find the magic of what you communicate and how you get it out to people. I think for me, that's the hard thing, because it's hard to imagine, 10 people being meaningful, because we're all told you need 10, 15, 20, 50,000 followers to be,
To be
the
relevant.
influence of the word. Yeah, the word that I tell you I hate with a passion. And the reality is, let's just be honest. I've said this a million times. If you're an influencer, you don't have to tell anybody you are, because you're already doing it, right?
Yeah.
So those things are all superficial to me. They're exterior, and I don't think they have as much weight as people think they do. They're definitely important, but like you said, when you do your video games or you do your outdoors, you're the most you that you can be.
That's it.
And that's where people start digging it, right? Because now you're not like everybody else. When the lights turn up and we all get kind of afraid and are just kind of sitting here and we're talking and we're afraid to smile, whatever, you're going to look like everybody else, because that's what we all look like when we're
Yeah.
afraid on camera. Get
And
out of your shell, embrace the awkward, have the passion that you've already got. See, that's the great thing about this is, look, God gives us everything we need, right? You've already got the gas for the thing you want to tell the world about. You've already got giftings nobody else has. You've got the hard part down. Now it's just a matter of figuring out how you want to organize it so people can understand it, how you want to organize it consistently, because consistency is king. And then when you put it out there, it's one of these things where the right people will buy from your buffet, and you can make more and hopefully have a party at some point. So it's not quite as easy as that, but it's not as hard as you think it is.
well, and George Kennedy in the chat room here, I want to kind of go to this comment because he's so right. He says, if you spend your time in competition, you miss the
Hmm,
big picture. And I see so many times, and this kind of goes along with that. I see
that's
so
awesome.
many times that people are all out to get sponsors. They're all out to get. I mean, we're fortunate enough. We've got Telestream's backing on this show. It's fantastic. They've been a huge part of this, allowing us to do what we're passionate about. And a lot of times people get these sponsors, and the only time that the sponsors hear from those people are when they want something. There's never any relationship. Like I know with my outdoor stuff, I have a lot of sponsors, and I'm not saying that to brag, but I'm trying to make a point here. Um, I make it a point that once a week, maybe sometimes twice a week, I'm texting them a joke or funny pictures or things like that that I thought was humorous in maybe the outdoor world that I send to them, and they respond back and building a relationship, right? And so when that time comes that I do need something or they need something from me, they need a video, it's just like, hey man, we'd really like a close-up shot of this broadhead. Let's just use that as an example. You think you can snap one the next time you're in a tree with that? Yeah, absolutely. Or I say to them, hey, I need a couple broadheads. We're going out hunting. We're going to this state. Sure, man, I'll throw it. I'll throw it in. That's kind of how it works. Instead of worrying about, oh, this other team's got this guy on as a sponsor. Who cares? What are you doing to fester? What's your why? What are you doing to fester that relationship, right?
That's right. Yeah, yeah, I mean, you're not in a major football league, right? It's not like you're jumping teams or things like that. And that's what I was gonna say, because I know sometimes you'll take photos for some of the folks that need it.
Yeah.
And that's cool. I mean, the best relationships I've made with other people who've supported me and helped me started with a phone call where I said, "How can I help you?"
Yep.
And it
That's
wasn't
it.
like being weird, but it was like, "Hey, I love what you're doing. I wanna help." And then they're like, "Hey, guess what? I can help you on this end." And that's where we all get along a little bit better, because that's the one thing that's missing in our world today, Steve, across the board, whether it's through politics or anything else, is that people have lost the art of working together and valuing each other. And when you do that, it takes all the load off of you, because when you're heavy, somebody else can be like, you know what, we're still going to get that show done. You're going to be fine. Here's what we're going to do.
Yep.
And that's where collaboration and community are just immensely important to me.
And honestly, I mean, there's we don't have all the answers to everything, and it's great to see the community members jump in and say, "Hey, I have the answer to that," and then or they show us their setup, which I'm going to throw a little plug here. Send us your
That's
setups. We
right.
want to see it. Um, then they come on
Yeah.
and they
And
they they drop knowledge bombs on us, Jeff.
listen, just because we're the three that took the chance to put ourselves out there, by no means that any of us are Randy Jackson, Simon Cowell, and Paula Abdul. I'm not even going to get into that part of it, but no, but seriously, it doesn't mean that we're the experts. It means that we are industry experts, in some ways, but we learn from everybody. If any of you who've ever done any instruction, any training, any formal presentations to companies, whatever you might be doing, you all know that you learn more in that setting than you ever did trying to read or learn or anything like that, because people find magnificent ways of being really smart about things that you think you've already got figured out. And so, that's exactly what you're going to learn, is bringing other people into the mix. Your community is going to teach you more than you'll ever know.
And I think that I was just reading a comment here. Lindsay says, "I made it for the finale."
There you
You got to listen. We're giving our
Thanks.
opinions on this stuff. Our opinions because it's tried and true for us. What works for us may not work for you, but the principle is still there.
That's right.
My boss made a joke yesterday. He was like, "Well, so there's two ways of doing things, right? There's the right way, and then there's your way." And I, I said back to him, I was like, actually, there's three ways of doing things. We were joking around. I said, actually, there's three ways of doing things. There's the right way, there's your way, and then there's the wrong way, which most people do it the wrong way. Just
That's
kind of
right.
like
That's
joking
right.
around. Because the reason I say that they do it the wrong way is because they take their way to say that it's gospel when in most cases it's the wrong way. So, you know,
Well,
it's
so
just
for
one of
the
them things.
last couple of minutes of this, let's just tie a nice bow on it and say, like, what is the wrong way? When we talk, again, about the meaning of the show today, what is your why? What is your motivation? The way that you don't want to approach producing your show is flippantly, uh, carelessly, non-intentionally. I love these little notebooks, look like the old reporter notebooks, Perry Mason. I carry them around a lot when I go out, and I'll sit a lot of times at one of my favorite restaurants outside, and I'll sit, and that's my time to think and write down new ideas. How do I want to structure my program? Who are the people I'd love to talk to? And do not be afraid of interviewing people smarter than you, because you're already smart enough to have the conversation. They'll be the ones to bring more content and more real value into the conversation. So find out, who are these people, even if you think you can't reach them, even if you think they wouldn't call you back. If you're putting together something that looks reasonably competent, and that's the baseline that you're going to have to hit: in focus, great lighting, good audio is the number one thing. You got to be able to hear everybody, and you're putting something together that you think is presentable. Make a list of the people you'd love to interview. If you're an old car person, you might want to interview somebody who's got the world's oldest Corvette or something along those lines. But don't be afraid to bring people in, because everybody likes to get asked to be on a program of some sort. And so, who are the interviews? Who are the stakeholders in that? And then beyond the other people, do you want to segment your show? Do you want to start off with maybe the top 2 minutes is saying hi to some folks and sharing some industry news? Do you want to make that middle section the interview? Do you want to make the last section maybe the quote of the day? Do you want to get out of the studio, get on your phone, go out and do some man on the street interviews, and then play them into your show the following week, and then answer those questions in real time or answer them with your guest? All these things are possible. And I'm a big believer that we are not doing enough to get away from the talking head syndrome. It's what we do on the internet mainly because it's the easiest way to do these things. But as you go, you can do a lot more production than what you do in just a studio. And if you think about it that way, those are the ways to do it. There's some other ways, like we talked about, where you shouldn't do it. And really, the biggest thing is paying attention. Look at it and run to the roar, and you'll be fine.
I think we should also tell Jeff that there is this thing on his phone. It's called a note taking app, right? so he doesn't have to go the old school way of carrying, paper around it. I believe if you have an iPhone, Jeff, it's called Notes on it. No, I'm just picking
You
on
know,
you.
I do have my trusty iPhone, and I do take notes on it, but you know what I found for me is that I'm like, Odie from Garfield. If I pick my phone up, I for some reason, I end up on this site called Facebook, and I don't quite understand how it happens. So sometimes it's better to put the phone aside for me and get some paper out
I
and write it, and then I can
You
organize
know
it
what
and keep
though?
things like
You're
that.
100% right with that though, and I need to do that more because I try to put everything on my phone, and what happens is with notifications on and everything like that, you get sidetracked from the real reason why you have that open. And instead of writing notes, you find yourself looking on Facebook and every other app that you have that's getting notifications while you're trying to write in that notes app. So I listen, I get it. I'm just picking on you.
I call it digital sediment. 2 minutes later, you can't remember what you were thinking about 2 minutes ago, so
so so I'm gonna get all this hate mail now because I was picking on you about using a notepad. But no, we're gonna have to wrap it up, guys. We really hope you got something out of this. The nuggets that we put out there, Jeff. Very wise. He's been in the industry for quite some time. It's always great to hear his take and perception on this. And I learned some stuff today. If you guys didn't, I absolutely did. But I want to encourage you guys, and I know Jeff, you're right there with me to send in your videos of your setup. It doesn't even have to be a Wirecast setup. Send us your workflow. Send us a video. And the reason we ask for the video is so we can show it to the rest of the audience. Sometimes a still picture doesn't really do it. And I know some folks said they sent in a picture, and then I told them, "Hey, can you send in a video?" And they're like, "Yeah, we'll send it in," but they forget. So get it sent in
yeah.
so we can look at it.
Yeah, yeah, and I didn't mean to interrupt, Steve.
No, you're
I
fine.
would just say too, yeah, I would just say too that we're not necessarily looking for show and tell. If you're having trouble in a particular area, if you're trying to figure out how to make some connection work, or you're trying to figure out how to do something you haven't done before, and there's a way we can help, we'd love to see what that looks like. But it's always better to share video with everybody so that everybody can kind of get a feel and a vibe for what you're doing. We've had some great people already share some great material. It's a great way of getting yourself out in front of other folks, and we can certainly talk to you about it as well. So send it in. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and don't be shy. Maybe you're working on it. Maybe you're in a school, or maybe you're working on a special project, and you want to show it. And you can always come on the show, like we've done with other folks. We're not a respecter person, so if you want to join us on the show and ask questions and have us work through, and if it's something that has to do with marketing, we've got some guys that specialize in that. And like I said, in 2 weeks we're gonna have somebody on about that. So we've got the tools if you're willing to use it, and we'll do our best to help. But guys, I really appreciate you all coming on here. And, like I said, Paul Richards, you definitely don't want to miss that show next week because I heard a rumor that he's giving away a PTZ Optics camera next week of the webcam. Maybe, Jeff, I can talk him into giving away one of the bigger PTZ Optics cameras on the show.
You
Maybe.
know, people don't know it, but my family, we actually do a real game show called Game Show Loco. You can look it up on Facebook. I think we make it a game show next week. I think that would be a great grand prize.
Hey, I'm up for anything. So, I'm going to put the bug out there to Paul Richards. So make sure you guys like the Telestream Wirecast page. Make sure you follow the Telestream page. Go on Twitter, Instagram. Go over to us on LinkedIn because we stream this everywhere. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Let's get those YouTube subscription numbers up. We upload these shows every week to YouTube. We're going to have the podcast coming soon in January, as well as we got some other things that are working on, in the background that we're going to be chatting about. But guys, get out there and do it. Help support us. Share this video around. That helps. It's none of this stuff costs any money. It's just something that you can help us and help the community, help Telestream for allowing us to do what we do here. So again, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Jeff, for joining and holding the fort down here as dropping the knowledge bombs.
Hey, no worries. Our Marty will be back next week, right?
Well, he's going to have a tough act to follow there. That was a that was a pretty tough
Oh, I
act
don't
today.
I don't think so. Marty is the supreme maker of all things video, and we all know that. No, it's always great to be here on the show. And if any of you like what you're hearing, hook up with me. Send me a note, a Facebook message, something like that. Like my page, jeffandhighdef.tv. Would love to help you and help you get where you're going.
So You guys could follow him there and check him out. And guys, thank you so much. I'm the Tech Buzz everywhere. You can go find me. Just search the Tech Buzz, and you'll find me. That's probably the easiest thing to tell you. And until next week, guys, we will see you later. And remember just to keep everything moving on social. See ya.